Good evening, Sports Zonians. How's everybody doing out there tonight? I am Mike Aglialoro. I am your host. This is Sports Zone. Coming to you live like we do each and every week here via the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Radio Network. We got a good show for you. Tonight we'll be joined by Dave Hastings and hopefully Erich Treslar in a matter of moments. And our main focus of discussion tonight is we are going to continue our division by division preview of the 2018 NFL season. And we have moved on. We are covering the AFC and the NFC Northern divisions tonight. Last couple of weeks we have done the AFC and NFC Northern, Southern divisions and the Western divisions. And if you guys want, you can always check out past episodes of this program on my YouTube page, which I believe is youtube.com/MikeAgs121. And we have everything there. We have timestamps for everyone, so you can jump to whatever conversation you want. And we got a bunch of other things to talk about tonight as well. But before we get into some of the main topics for tonight, before everybody joins us, let's take a look at the live scoreboard, the baseball games that are happening right now. The Mets, shockingly, just tied up the game they have against the San Francisco Giants in the bottom of the seventh inning. They were down 2-0. Austin Jackson just singled home Wilmer Flores. And before that, Michael Conforto hit a sac fly to score Jeff McNeil, all in the bottom of the seventh inning. And the score is now tied at 2-2. Steve Matz goes 5 innings, gives up 2 runs. Corey Oswalt has pitched 2 scoreless innings. Mets have had a crazy week. They took 3 out of 5 games from the Philadelphia Phillies. Within the last couple weeks, they had like 25 runs scored against them, and then they put up a 24 spot against the Philadelphia Phillies. And then they lose a game in 14 innings last night. I believe the final score was 2-1. So, honestly, I have no idea what the hell to make of this team. They're 54-70 right now. So obviously, this is a lost season. Stating the obvious, of course, but you really have no idea what to make of this team, and you have no idea what to make of them going into the future. But to look across Major League Baseball, the Braves are up 2-0 over the Pittsburgh Pirates. That is in the top of the 6th inning. We have a delay in Washington. They are up 1-0 over the Philadelphia Phillies. Washington had a big day in terms of trades today. They, in essence, kind of threw in the towel on this season. They traded Daniel Murphy to the Chicago Cubs for a single-A prospect and cash considerations, and then they traded their first baseman, Matt Adams, to the St. Louis Cardinals, where he actually started his career for cash considerations as well. So you have that. I'm hoping Erich is here because I'd like to talk to him about that, just because, we talk all the time about how the Mets wind up trading players away and never really getting enough in return for him. And I look at the returns for Murphy. Both Murphy and Adams are free agents after the season, so obviously that is a factor. But you look at what Murphy has done the last 2 years, and obviously this season's been a down year for him. He spent the better part of the first 3 months on the injured list. But dude was basically an MVP candidate each of the last 2 seasons. We joke all the time. 2015, coming into the season, in that season, he was just a regular player, and then all of a sudden the playoffs come, and the dude turned into freaking Babe Ruth. And in the last 2 years, he's basically been like Ty Cobb until Ted Williams had a baby. So I never quite understood it. I think when you look back on the whole Daniel Murphy situation, I feel like him leaving is one of those situations where both sides really lost. Because, all right, he goes to the Nationals. Nationals made the playoffs each of the last 2 years, got bounced in the first round each season. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure they got bounced in the first round each season. And then you look at the Mets, 2016, they make the wild card game, and we've seen what has happened the last 2 seasons. So I don't really feel like any side got the better end of that, all things considered. I always said that I thought Daniel Murphy's greatest value was to the New York Mets. And I never thought he was really going to have the same value to any other team. Obviously, he proved that initial statement wrong. but it's not exactly like anything he did really led to another team really prospering in that time. I mean, yeah, the Nationals made the playoffs, bounced in the first round. They didn't need Daniel Murphy to do that. They were doing that just fine on their own. So, and obviously the Mets, I mean, I'll say until I'm blue in the face, I got why the Mets didn't re-sign him. He wanted this 4 or 5 year contract. He never wound up getting that. He was the Nationals' third choice to fill second base. So most teams did not want Daniel Murphy for the price of the contract that he was wanting. They gave him the $15 million for one season qualifying offer. He turned it down. He didn't even get $15 million annually. He had to settle for a contract that paid him $13 million annually. Yeah, right, I get you wanted the security, but, you know, if I'm a guy who truly believes in myself, there's nothing wrong with taking that contract in a prove-it-type season and then turning around and showing everyone why you deserve that. And look who comes in first. We have Erich Treslar here, ladies and gentlemen. Eric, how you doing tonight?
Doing good.
All right.
Get sweaty.
Yeah, let's get sweaty, son. So I'm glad you come in right now because I wanted to talk a little baseball today. I don't know if you heard, but the Washington Nationals basically threw in the towel on the season today. They traded Daniel Murphy to the Chicago Cubs for, I believe it was a single round, single A prospect, cash considerations, and then they traded Matt Adams, the first baseman, back to the St. Louis Cardinals where he started his career, and they only got cash considerations out of that one as well. Now, you hearing that, what were your initial thoughts when you heard of these deals?
Well, this is the first I'm hearing of the deal, so
okay.
My initial thoughts are, I guess, good for the teams to get traded. I don't know how they benefit much out of these trades. I mean, getting a single A player and some cash considerations. I mean, I don't know. I don't know why they're doing this. Mm-hmm. Maybe in a desperate heap to keep money to pay Harper more. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't understand the moves. I'll be honest. I don't know why you throw in the towel now. I mean, mathematically, were they out of it? I don't know.
I think they were about 7.5 games out of the division or the wild card. I could be wrong on that one. I know the general manager, Mike Rizzo, came out today and he said this isn't us throwing in the towel or anything, but this is basically them throwing in the towel. I think we can admit that, even though they still have Ryan Zimmerman at first base. They still have other guys they can play at second base instead of Murphy. They played most of the season without Murphy anyway because he was hurt. So theoretically, you could see them still having a chance, but for the most part, this is them throwing in the towel. Murphy's been an MVP candidate the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, no, he's been great.
Yeah.
Murphy's been really good for them. That's why I'm with you. I don't understand the move. I don't think it makes much sense for the Nationals. I don't know what direction it takes them in. And I don't know if this does anything in keeping Harper. So it's a whole lot of, I guess, they just threw in the towel, but for reasons I can't explain.
Come with me on this one for a second, because I have a weird kind of train of thought on this. Now, as a Met fan, I look at these trades, and it made me kind of happy in a way, because we both kind of gotten on the Mets, you a little more so, obviously, for the trades they've made over the last couple of years and the lack of return they have gotten. You know, all the trades they made at the deadline last season, and all they could really get was those minor league relief pitchers. And I think we both kind of felt that maybe there was more the Mets could get. Now, all of the players involved in the trades from last season, Jairus Familia, and these guys, were all free agents after the season. So in a weird way, I feel like trades like this, where you have Murphy, who was an MVP candidate the last 2 seasons, and then you have Adams, who actually played. I don't think he played great this season, but he has performed well in the past. You can arguably say both these guys are better than anybody that the Mets traded away this past season or last season. Is that fair?
Probably fair to say.
Okay. And they arguably get less of a return than the Mets got for the guys they got. Let me see if you're with me on this. I think this kind of validates some of the returns the Mets have gotten on their trades.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. One bad move doesn't validate another.
It's two. It's not one. It's two.
Even if it's two, it still doesn't validate another. The Mets are just terribly run. They make bad decisions. And to think that this justifies them because now the Nationals have made a couple questionable moves. Now, granted, they may have a reason and a perfectly solid explanation on why they're going this route. I just haven't heard it yet. So maybe I need to read a little more into this. But as of right now, I just don't understand the trade. And no, I don't think this makes the Mets look any better or their front office look any better. I still think they're terrible.
If I may, I'm not saying anything about the front office. I'm talking the trades themselves. We just said that both of these guys are better than any of the players that the Mets traded away. It's just to kind of rehash. Lucas Duda, Jay Bruce, Neil Walker, Jay Bruce Familia this past season, Curtis Granderson. Murphy and Adams have played better than them the last 3 seasons. They are at better points in their career than those guys have all been. I fully think this validates those trades because you got more of a return. Hang on. You got more of a return for literally spare parts than you did a guy
not true.
coming off of 2 MVP seasons and a guy who has performed as well as just about any first baseman in baseball the last 3 seasons. And this is what you get. You didn't even get a minor league reliever.
Hold on, wait. What'd you guys get for Murphy when you let him go?
We got a first-round draft pick actually out of that, and I don't remember. Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, you really didn't get much out of it. So I mean, listen, they got more for Murphy than you did.
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't think. Honestly, you telling me a single?
You want to go apples to apples? You guys practically gave away Murphy. You didn't You didn't even want to give him 15 a year.
Let's not rewrite history here. We didn't exactly give him away. No team actually wanted Murphy that offseason, if you remember. He was the Nationals' 3rd choice. They wanted Ben Zobrist originally. He signed with the Cubs. They wanted Brandon Phillips. He vetoed a deal to them. And then they signed Murphy, who originally wanted a 5-year contract, didn't even recoup the annual value the Mets gave him with that qualifying offer. And the Mets got a first-round pick out of it. And they took 2 first-round pitchers that year. It was Justin Dunn, Anthony Kay. Don't remember which one they took with the Murphy spot, but if it was Dunn, that kid you might actually be seeing making the majors and having an impact within the next couple of years. I like him a lot better than a single-A infielder and cash considerations or a player to be named later. Come on.
Well, at least you're getting cash back. I mean, listen, apples to apples, I'm probably taking the Nationals deal over the Mets deal for Murphy, as far as the first-round pick goes. So at least with the single-A player, you know a little bit more of what you're getting than you do with just the first-round draft pick.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of the move. I mean, I don't understand the move, I should say. Not that I'm not a fan. I just need to read a little more about it and find out what's in it for the Nationals by doing this. There's got to be something. There's got to be a reason why they did it.
Okay. I'm going to disagree with you. I have one other point I'd like to make, but before that, I want to apologize because apparently Dave Hastings has been on the line, and I just now noticed it. So let's welcome Dave into the show. Dave, how you doing?
Well, that's not very nice.
I know. I'm a horrible person. I'm sorry, Dave.
Yeah, no, 10 minutes of staring at a black screen is always a good time.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And I'm sitting there going, I wonder where Dave is. And then I look over, oh, shit. Oh, I'm sorry, Dave. How are you?
I'm good, my man. I'm good. One day closer to the weekend.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to get to our division preview of the AFC and the NFC North. I want to ask one last question to Eric about this, and then we'll wrap up. Okay, last point about Daniel Murphy, because you said the deal about they practically gave him away. He's a free agent after this season, so it's the end of the 3-year contract they signed with the Nationals. Looking at things and how everything is shaken out, in my opinion, this is one of those situations where you have a breakup between a team and a player, and really nobody benefited from it when you think about it. this. Murphy goes to the Nationals. He has those great seasons. They don't even make it out of the first round either year in the playoffs. And now he's going to be 35 after this contract. May not get another long-term deal again. And obviously, we know where the Mets are. I don't think anybody benefited from him leaving New York. What do you think?
I think we're putting way too much time into Daniel Murphy. I'll be honest. I was just making a comparison between the two. And I still think that the Mets, didn't even want him. The Mets did not want him.
They gave him the qualifying offer. They wanted him.
They really didn't. They really didn't want him. And they should have wanted him. And he left, and he found another team, and he played great.
And who did it benefit?
You know, for the return that these teams are going to get out of them, the return that you said the Cubs that got him?
Yeah, right.
All right, so the Cubs got him. I think that the Cubs aren't going to get the same return the Nationals got. So because of that reason, I think it looks worse on the Mets. They gave him away for nothing. He had 2 MVP seasons. Could have been a guy that helped New York. That's all I'm saying.
He had 2 MVP seasons, and the Nationals did absolutely nothing with either of those in the grand scheme of things. Just want to point that out. And the Mets wanted him. He could have taken that contract, and they wouldn't have been able to take it away, Just want to say that. For all he wanted to be in New York. He didn't want to be in New York. He wanted to get paid.
He didn't want to get cheaped out by the Mets.
But meanwhile,
they don't want to pay anybody.
He got cheaped out by all of Major League Baseball anyway. Okay.
Let's move on.
All right, we'll move on. Dave, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Could care less, my friend.
Okay, fair enough. Well, Dave, I'll tell you what. Before we start the division preview, because I feel bad that I did not notice you there. Do you have anything you would like to throw up? Anything you would like to talk about tonight?
No, I'm good right now, my man. Let's get the show rolling.
All right.
Let's go Yankees.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, okay. Good. Thanks for talking.
Crowded that with too much Met talk and didn't talk enough about my awesome Yankees.
We don't need to. We know. We know. We got it. We got it. We're good. All right. So Football. Let's talk some division previews. Let's look at the AFC Northern Division here. Last season, the Pittsburgh Steelers ran away with the division with a 13-3 record. Baltimore finished with 9-7. Their defense has been solid yet unspectacular, as has been the quarterback play from Joe Flacco. Cincinnati kind of bottomed out for them at 7-9. Marvin Lewis is still the coach of the Cincinnati Bengals for how much longer is anybody's guess. And Cleveland, once again, another piss-poor season, completely tanked at 0-16. John Kaiser led the team, did the best he could do, and there they are at 0-16, hoping for yet another. Hoping for their first positive season in a long time after 1-31 over the last 2 seasons combined. So, Dave, why don't you give your thoughts on this division heading into the season?
So, wait, we're doing the AFC
North.
The North, okay. Sorry, my apologies. So, yeah, look, one of the biggest things I just saw running across the bottom line on ESPN is in Baltimore, Jimmy Smith gets suspended now to start the season for the first 4 games.
Right.
You mentioned that defense. Terrell Suggs, look, I still think the man's a monster, but he's not the same guy he was, 4 or 5 seasons ago. Health has also been an issue with him. Flacco has not been the same quarterback since that run that got him his contract to get them to the Super Bowl. They bring in Lamar Jackson, trade back into the first round to draft him. You got RG3 as their other backup quarterback. Really kind of not any really impressive names across the running back or wide receiver, platform. Their offensive line outside of Yonda is kind of question marked. Baltimore to me is a team that, has enough, because I do like Harbaugh, coach, has enough where I think they could be fighting for 500 or maybe a game over by the end of the season. But I do think 1 or 2 key injuries or suspensions on that team, and all of a sudden they're, drafting in the top, 10 to 12 picks of the next year's draft. So not too high on Baltimore. Cleveland, I think they're making the right moves. They're doing the right things. I still think I would have went Darnold over Mayfield with the number 1 pick, but I don't watch enough college football to have a strong enough opinion on that to make an argument out of it. I just, based on everything I've read and watched or, heard is probably the better way to say, it sounds like Darnold was the more, day one ready. But I do like Taylor at quarterback for them as kind of a bridge guy. Defensively, they've always been a pretty stout defense over the last couple of years, even with them not having any offensive production or talent. You could look back; they really haven't had many games where they give up over like 24 points to. So, defensively, they've always been kind of stacked. Cincinnati, to me, is just one of those teams where, kind of how you do in the NBA. Sooner or later, they're just going to have to wave that white flag and start from the beginning again because outside of, they got some young pieces, the young running backs with Bernard and the other kid that they drafted last year who played.
I know who you're talking about, too.
Then you have A.J. Green who, is pushing that 30 number, but still is one of the best wide receivers in the league. Andy Dalton, to me, is an average quarterback. He's not great. He doesn't suck. He's an average quarterback to me. He's good enough to be a starter in the league, but I think if I have him as my starter and I have the opportunity to draft somebody that I think's better than him, I'm drafting that guy over somebody else. Defensively, Geno Atkins, they got some talent on the defensive side of the ball, but still, I don't think they have much. And, to me, Pittsburgh still has Big Ben, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster. Their defense really could use some improvements, but all in all, they have the most solid and sturdy foundation when it comes down to quarterback, coaching staff, offensive weapons. So to me, they're still the favorite in the division.
Mm-hmm. And Joe Mixon was the running back you were thinking of. I couldn't remember it at the time myself, so I'll just throw that up there. All right, Eric, your thoughts about the division?
Pittsburgh, and then a Seaman pile or whatever after that. They're the only team with some real talent. Big Ben, gonna probably make another push, try to get one more ring. No better time to do it now than when he's got weapons like Bell and Brown around him. Their defense is always ready to play. So they're top of the division. Everybody else, Baltimore, who knows what you're going to get out of them. There's way too many question marks to count on anything but maybe a 500 season. Cincinnati, again, a little bit of talent with A.J. Green, and, they're going to win some games. But, again, the team fighting for probably 500, maybe 9-7. And Cleveland, although I don't see them going winless, I don't see them making the playoffs either. So maybe a nice 6-10 season for Cleveland. I don't know. I just don't see much out of this division outside of Big Ben and the Steelers. I think it's theirs to lose, barring injury.
All right. Well, listen, I think we're all going to agree that the Steelers are the class of this division. I don't really think that's up for debate right now. But to kind of look at the other teams, and I'm just going to throw a question for each team here. How soon into the season can we see the Ravens saying, someone we're kind of seeing what we got from Joe Flacco, let's hand it over to Lamar Jackson and see what we could do from there? And, Eric, I'll go back to you on that.
I'm not sure when their bye week is this year. It's late in the year. I would say maybe after the bye. If it's early in the year, I'm going to go maybe after week 12.
Okay. Dave, what do you say?
So,
excuse me, Eric. Sorry.
Really, I think it's a matter of once they know they're out of the playoff race. I think they're going to ride with Flacco for this year. If they're in a playoff race throughout the season, I think Flacco plays the whole season. But I think if they're out of the playoff race and they want to kind of see what they have moving forward, I think that's kind of when you're going to see it move.
Okay. All right. And Eric,
what week would you say that is? What week would you estimate?
Considering I got them as a 500 team this year, I'm putting them in at 8-8 when we go over records. I'm going to probably say right around when you said, maybe week 12, week 13. Because I don't think that, I think by that point it's going to be obvious they're not going to have enough wins to get to the playoffs in the AFC.
All right, I don't know if this is going to change anybody's minds, but I'm looking at things right now, and it looks like – all right, I'm wrong on that. I'm trying to find out when their bye week is. Off the top of my head, trying to do this quick. I'm not entirely sure. Eric, I'm going to go with you. I think it's towards the latter half of the season. So I thought it was earlier, and I looked at that, and it was wrong. I'm going to say the midpoint. I think you look at their schedule. I think if they come out of the stretch, Titans, Saints, Panthers, Steelers. If they come out of that stretch and they're really like sucking wind at that point, I think they make the change. I think I'm going to say it'll be before week 12 though. So, all right. And then looking at the Bengals, I'm going to go for the easy question here, but it's a fair question to ask. Is this the last season we're going to see Marvin Lewis as the head coach and Andy Dalton as your starting quarterback in Cincinnati? Dave.
I'll say unless they have a miraculous turnaround and make a playoff run, 100% I think that's the case. Maybe not Dalton, but definitely Lewis.
Okay. Eric.
Lewis has somehow survived, I believe it's now, 15 seasons without a win in the postseason? That's pretty terrible. But yet for some reason that man just still has a job. I don't understand it. He should have been gone probably 5 or 6 years ago. He should be going after this year, but for some crazy reason I don't think he'll be. And I don't think Dalton's going anywhere either because, let's face it, quarterback market probably isn't going to be that great. And unless there's an absolute stud coming up out of college and you have one of the top few picks, is it really worth it to get rid of a guy like Dalton, who you're not going to have to pay superstar money to, or keep him and try to win some games? I don't know. I think that they may go with the devil that they know, like they've done with Marvin Lewis for the last 15 years.
Well, what I'll say is the reason why they kept him is I think they all remember where the Bengals were before Marvin Lewis came in. The Bengals were a laughingstock for a very long time before Marvin Lewis came in. He, at the very least, got the team respectable.
But without a playoff win, are they really respectable? Are they really not just like a slight step up from the Browns?
There is, like, I think. Wait a minute.
They're not far off of the Browns. They have a lot of arrests. They have a lot of problems. They have a lot of nonsense that goes on even under Marvin Lewis. I mean, Pac-Man Jones, I believe he was there when he had all his nightclub stuff going on at the time.
But hang on. They're respectable in that, despite all that stuff, year in, year out, they're still in a playoff hunt. They're not coming off a 1-32 stretch over the last 2 seasons. They've been a competitor in the AFC. And in that AFC North, being a competitor year in and year out is not an easy thing to do. We take it for granted because you have teams like the Ravens and the Steelers, and you basically have 3 teams that are in the fight every year. But being a competitor in the AFC North and the AFC year in and year out, that's not an easy thing to do. So I do think –
yeah, it is. When you beat up on teams like the Browns and the Bengals, it's pretty easy to do.
Well, you're talking about
the Steelers have been so dominant for years.
Stop. You're talking about the Bengals. The Bengals can't beat up on themselves. Come on, stop that.
I mean, Mike, you got to keep in mind, I think they had, 6 wins last year? And the year before, I think they had 8. They've steadily declined the last 3 to 4 years.
I'm not arguing that point. They went 7-9 last season, actually. They have steadily declined. All I'm saying is they have been I don't want to say legitimate competitor because we all know no one was picking them to win a Super Bowl. I get that. But they were a tough team who's been respectable for the better part of the last decade, which is more than what you can say for what the Bengals were before Marvin Lewis came in. That's why he's lasted as long as he had. I do think this will be the last season of Marvin Lewis, though, if they wind up having a bad season this year. If they don't make the playoffs, he's gone. Dalton, I don't think is going to be too much farther behind him because Dave, like you said originally, he's an average quarterback. We've seen the best that we're going to see from him. So, That's my answer. All right. The only thing I'll ask about the Browns real quick is who do we think winds up starting the majority of the games for them? Tyrod Taylor or Baker Mayfield? Eric, go ahead.
I think they're going to end up starting Tyrod Taylor and then going to Mayfield later in the year, although I really think they should just start with Mayfield right from the start. I think you learn more in the game than you do on the bench. So, but yeah, I think they're going to end up starting Tyrod first. Yeah,
but who starts the majority of the games was the question. Do you think Taylor winds up starting like 3/4 of the season, or do you think he winds up getting?
I think it could be close to a half and half mix. Again, it's another team where I would like to see where their bye week lands. If I knew where their bye week landed, I could tell you a little better because maybe they'll wait until after the bye week. I'm actually going to try and look at that right now.
Yeah, I'm going to try to find it too.
Yeah, I think it's kind of more of a good chance of being a 50-50 split. I think the upcoming third preseason game might be a little bit more of a dead giveaway of what their thought process is. I think Tyrod's supposed to start that game, but I think they're trying to get Mayfield in.
Goodbye is week 11, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're trying to get Mayfield in during that game with the number ones. One of the big things going around right now, social media, is Baker Mayfield's new photo shoot with a Bentley and a tiger for some ad. I don't even know what the hell the company's for. I just noticed the tiger. But yeah, it's I definitely think it's more likely going to be Tyrod for at least the first 6 to 8 games, and then they know they're not the players might not think it or might not say it, but the organization knows they're not a Super Bowl caliber or even a playoff caliber team yet. So you got you try to win some games with your veteran and see what he can do for you, and then throw Mayfield out there. But I'm more with Eric. I think you just put your rookie out there and see what he got. It's the only position that people actually debate. They were taken in the top 3 or top 5, and people still debate whether or not they should be a starter on day one, and that's just nonsense to me. If you're good enough to be taken that high, then you should be good enough to step on the field week 1 of the season. If you're going to use a draft pick that high, figure it the hell out, see what he's got, and, worst case scenario, do it all over again next year. But, I think it's a split, maybe 8 games for Tyrod, 8 for Baker. No less than 6 games, though. I think that's a fair over-under. I don't think it's any less than 6 games for Tyrod Taylor to start the year.
Well, I'm going to be the oddball here because I feel like they're going to go out of their way not to start Mayfield this season because they basically rode with John Kaiser for the entire season last year, and it really did not work out. Kaiser didn't get any better the more they played him. And I'm not trying to compare Kaiser to Mayfield in terms of what type of player they are, because I think we can agree Mayfield's probably got more talent than Kaiser does just by the fact that he was taken first overall. But I think they signed Tyrod Taylor for a reason, and that was so he could come in and be the veteran that they know they can kind of trust with the ball. He's actually been a better quarterback than he gets a lot of credit for in Buffalo. I'm not calling him an elite quarterback. I'm saying he's a good, serviceable quarterback. I think for that offense, he's going to be fine for him. I do think we see Mayfield later in the season, but I think if they're able to get some wins early in the season, they're going to ride Taylor as long as possible. So I think if I had to guess, you said the bye week is week 11, so I'm going to say Mayfield starts week 12 and on, and that would mean Taylor winds up getting the majority of the starts. So that's what I'd say. All right, let's put some predictions on this, and then we'll move to the NFC North. Dave, would you like to begin?
So I'm putting Cleveland at 3-13, Cincinnati at 6-10, Baltimore 8-8, and Pittsburgh at 12-4.
Fair enough. Eric, what do you got?
I'm going to go from the top down. I got Pittsburgh at 12-4. I got Cincinnati at 8-8. I got Baltimore at 7-9, and Cleveland at 5-11.
All right, we all got. Wow, like honestly, I feel like if Cleveland went 5-11, they'd try to throw a parade for them.
They probably
would. I'm gonna say 4-12 for Cleveland. I say 4-12 for Cleveland. Cincinnati, I got it 6-10. Baltimore, I got 8-8, and yeah, Pittsburgh at 11-5. So yeah, no question, Pittsburgh's got this. All right, so let's move on to the AFC North. Minnesota ran away with this division, much to the surprise of just about everybody last season, with a 13-3 record with a journeyman quarterback who had never started more than like 5 games in the season in Case Keenum. And they went 13-3. Green Bay really bottomed out last season thanks to injuries to Aaron Rodgers. They went 7-9. Detroit, who's really been kind of stuck in neutral the last few seasons, wound up going 9-7 last year and finished in second. They made the wild card the year before. They fought for the wild card last season, but Detroit has basically always kind of been one step down from whoever's the top of the division. And Cleveland went 5-11 and turned the keys to the kingdom over to Mitch Trubisky late in the season. He is now going to be their starter of the future, and he's going to be their starter when the season starts. So that's basically the outlook at the division. Eric, let's hear from you first. What are your thoughts on this division?
Couple of mediocre teams and a couple teams I want to see more of. I want to see more of Minnesota. I want to see what they're like under Kirk Cousins. I want to see if Dalvin Cook's back and, better than ever from injury. I want to see what goes on in Green Bay. I mean, he adds Jimmy Graham but loses Jordy Nelson. I'm hearing things of him, kind of being the old man up there and yelling at the young receivers and not too happy with their progress. I really do think those two teams are the top of the division. Don't have a ton of faith in the Lions. And yeah, same with Chicago. Two teams I don't have a lot of faith in.
Yeah. I'll tell you this, Dave, I want your thoughts, but I want to say, I don't know how you guys think about this. I liked hearing that Aaron Rodgers was kind of being the old man, doing the get off my lawn thing with the youngsters who weren't really giving their all in the practice. I like that. This is his team. He's got to put his foot down. These guys are supposed to be, his top weapons. I like seeing that fire out of him. Dave?
Well, I mean, look, I'll say this. Aaron Rodgers is trying to get the Packers are trying to get a contract extension done with Rodgers before the year starts, because I think if he goes into the year without a contract extension and coming off of the injuries and, rough season last year, I think he could put up numbers where they're going to have to give him a contract that they just don't want to stomach giving him, because you're not going to let him go, obviously. Defensively, that team still has question marks. Clay Matthews, another year older. They constantly seem to deal with injuries on that defensive side of the ball. They also lost one of their linebackers in free agency to Dallas, actually, who was, he was a role player. He wasn't one of their starters, but he was a pretty important role player for them on that defensive side of the ball. Their secondary, to me, outside of Clinton Dix, is kind of iffy or questionable.
Roll Tide.
You want to say it? Roll Tide. Yeah, there you go, Eric. Green Bay, to me, I still think if Aaron Rodgers plays all 16 games, is the best team in the division, just because Rodgers, to me, is that much better than the other quarterbacks. But Minnesota, to me, what they have on that defensive side of the ball, I mean, everybody wanted to talk about, what they did on offense last year, but that defense for the last several seasons, I mean, even going back to when Favre was playing on Minnesota, that defense is just something special. They have talent on every level of the ball, and they're just really, really good on defense. Offensively, what Kirk Cousins might be able to do with Stephon Diggs and what's the other wide receiver? Thielen. Yeah. I think they have a chance to have a better offense than they did last year with Keenum, but, that kind of remains to be seen. Detroit, if they lose Matthew Stafford, that team automatically goes from fighting for a playoff spot to literally drafting in the top 10. That whole team revolves around what Stafford's able to do on offense, and I think everybody knows it, including them. And then, you look at Chicago, they're the team that 3 years from now I think is going to be a team fighting for a division title. Trubisky continues to develop some of the young talent they have on the offensive side of the ball. I think Chicago's one of those teams where it's not this year or next year, but 2021 or whatever year it's going to be 3 years from now. I think that's the year where they really start competing if Trubisky develops the way, people are projecting him to be able to develop. So I still think it's Green Bay, like Eric said. It's Green Bay and Minnesota at the top, Detroit fighting for a wild card spot, and Chicago probably finishing around 6 or 7 wins.
All right. Yeah, fair enough. To me, you guys kind of said it already. The division's going to come down to Minnesota and Green Bay. Will Aaron Rodgers stay healthy for the season? Dave, I like the point you brought up that if he goes into the season and he's fighting for a contract, he could definitely feel that and definitely wind up having his best seasons in years. Minnesota, I think it's going to be interesting. I think they're poised for a step back, but they actually, in my opinion, they have a legitimate quarterback this season in Kirk Cousins. Case Keenum had an MVP-type season, no question about that, but it comes from a guy who I think we all consider to be a journeyman quarterback and not an actual legitimate NFL starter. So to put Cousins on that team with Dalvin Cook healthy now, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how they do. I'm gonna start with the predictions here, and I got Chicago going 5-11. I think they're going to have the same record as they had last season. Dave, I agree with you that 3 years from now they could be really good, but right now I don't think they're there. Detroit, I have at 8-8. Dave, I also agree with what you said about if Stafford goes down, the team is screwed because the defense isn't really that good. They don't really have a running game. They brought in Eric Treslar to address that, but don't really have that. The wide receivers are decent. They have a decent passing game, but outside of Stafford, there's nothing really spectacular about this team. So I'm at 8-8. And then I have Minnesota and Green Bay tied for the division at 10-6. But if I have to give the division edge to anyone, I am going to give the slight edge to Minnesota. Just because of their defense, at least until the playoffs, they played really well. So if they can do that again, I think they'll have the edge here. But if Rodgers is healthy for the whole season, with the team he's got, it's going to be a very tight race. So those are my predictions. Dave, let's hear your predictions.
So I got Chicago actually getting 1 win better than last year at 6-10. I think, like I said, I think Trubisky's a little bit better. I think they've given him a little more weapons on the offensive side of the ball. That run game, their running backs, they have 2 really good running backs, so I think that'll help benefit both Trubisky and that offense. But defensively and, that offensive line, they still have some holes that they got to continue to build. I got Detroit coming in actually at 8-8 as well. I don't know. They're one of those teams. They kind of remind me of some of the Cowboy Romo teams where offensively they could score, but defensively they couldn't stop the nosebleed. I think that's really going to kind of make them a 500 team. I don't think they're going to be able to get enough big stops when it comes down to crunch time to pull out some of the wins that, are close games. I'm going to actually put Minnesota at 10-6. I think Kirk Cousins is a step above, their quarterback play from last year. But you think about, how he played in Washington. It's not like he did anything where people were like, oh, my God, he is an elite quarterback. So I'm going to put them at 10-6, and then Green Bay with a slight edge to win the division at 11-5.
Okay. Eric, who you got?
We're a broken record here. I got Chicago at 6-10. I got Detroit at 7-9, and Minnesota and Green Bay both at 10-6, with the slight edge going to Green Bay.
Okay. So, Dave, I could be wrong. You said Green Bay too, right?
Yeah, but I got them at 11-5. But I am with you guys with Minnesota at 10-6.
Okay. All right, so I'm the only one that went with Minnesota for the division. That's fine. Truthfully, I want to see Green Bay win because I like Aaron Rodgers anyway, so I'm okay with that. All right, so that's gonna do it for our preview of the AFC and NFC North for this week. Now we have 2 weeks left until the regular season begins. Regular season begins on Thursday, September 6th. So next week, it's okay with you guys. We'll do the AFC East division, and then the week after that, we'll do the full show on the NFC Eastern Division. I'm sure all three of us have a lot to say about that. So, with that, we got about 3 minutes left here. Does anybody have anything they would like to add before we sign off tonight?
I just want to say shout out to Victor Cruz. I mean, we all knew his NFL career was done, but the announcement of his official retirement was today. And though he may have played for the Giants, I will never not root for a guy from Jersey, especially somebody that grew up, 20 minutes from where, me and Eric live down in Patterson. Not to mention, I also had heard a great story about him. I'll make it really quick. Basically, my barber's wife goes for a run, and she always ran past Victor Cruz's house. They had a conversation about running shoes. The next day, the next week, she went for a run past his house, and he ran out to stop her and gave her 8 boxes of brand new running shoes for her. So just, shout out to Victor Cruz. Nobody will do the salsa like him in the end zone. And, like I said, shout out to a Jersey boy that, made it big and, maybe didn't have as long of a career as he would have liked to, but, got to get his name in those, and play underneath those bright lights on a Sunday.
Absolutely, absolutely. And he's joining ESPN now, too, so we'll definitely be seeing more of him. Eric, what do you say?
Preseason NCAA rankings came out. Alabama #1, Clemson #2, Georgia #3, Wisconsin 4, Ohio State 5. I think that's really high for Ohio State, considering what's going on this year. I really don't think they're going to finish that high. I think this scandal is going to hurt them. Just wanted to throw that in there. Just college football starting up, I believe, next weekend.
Eric, actually, quick.
Pumped.
What do you think? Have you seen any of the pictures or read anything about the new $600 million facility Alabama's building for training?
I've heard very little about it, but it's amazing.
Yeah, I saw a picture.
I've heard it's
It looks crazy.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Unfortunately, that is going to do us for us here tonight. Guys, I want to thank you both for being here with me. Dave Hastings, Erich Treslar. I am your host, Mike Aglialoro. This is SportsZone. Thank all you guys for listening. We will see y'all next week.
Have a good night.